Since I'm the one that created these lady creatures, I don't really have a myth story about where they came from, but I can tell you how I started creating them. Sometime in high school, I think around the 10th grade, I started becoming more interested in improving my figure drawing style. At that point, I had done a lot of drawings with characters that were just portrait based, so from the shoulders up, and I wanted to get better at drawing the entire body because that just wasn't something that I was good at. And then when I finally started to get a handle on how to draw human bodies, I became annoyed with drawing faces because I was more interested in getting to the actual figure drawing and not necessarily focusing on the portrait half. So sometime around 2018, 2019, I started experimenting with different ways that I could avoid drawing the head of the character. A couple of different ways that I did this was facing the character away so that it was just the back and the hair, and other times I would take inspiration from the Roman and Greek statues that are available in my local history museum because I liked the fact that some of the statues didn't have their heads or arms, but they were still revered as beautiful. Now for the trickier part of this history lesson about my creatures. I'm not 100% sure when I started drawing the mushrooms and flowers in place of the heads of these characters. I know sometime in 2020, whenever the lockdown was happening, I started experimenting with my art a whole lot more because I wasn't able to leave the house. And I think one of those experiments led to me drawing a galaxy in place of the head. And according to the photos that I still have in some of the sketchbooks that I still own, it looks like I played with that style and then would periodically go back to drawing the actual head of the character. And then at some point in 2021, I drew a skull in place of the head, and I also drew a fairy and then a witch. And I know in August of 2021, I did draw the first mushroom lady that I would ever put on my shop, which is the OG mushroom head woman. Of course, there were a couple of sketches leading up to that design, but I do remember sitting in the living room of a cottage that me and my fiance at the time were renting and being like, hey, wouldn't this make a really cool sticker? And he looked at me and he was like, yeah, I think it would be kind of cool. You might as well try. And then I think during that trip is when I drew the daisy head woman. And when I came back, I then drew the rose head lady. And before you guys leave any comments, yes, I'm going to address why all of my characters don't wear clothes. At first, it was because I was honestly practicing the figure drawing style. But in high school, I was starting to develop a really severe body dysmorphia, and I really hated the fact that I disliked how I looked and the fact that I couldn't find a lot of references that showcased different types of bodies. Yes, the media was becoming way more progressive than it had been, but I still felt uncomfortable with myself, so I decided that I was going to start drawing different types of bodies to make myself comfortable with the idea that everybody looks different, and that's okay. Which then made my style kind of snowball into what it is today, which is a bunch of ladies without their faces, but showcasing a really beautiful, whimsical, and kind of creepy styled aesthetic. And as I've shown off these characters, I've received a lot of feedback of people who are thinking the same thing that I did when I first started creating these characters, which is the feeling of being seen in other art, because it is necessary as a human, no matter how young or how old you are, to see people who represent you in media. I know that I haven't come even close to covering every single different type of body type there is. And there's also the other added bonus of the fact that I only ever really cover the feminine body type because that is what I'm familiar with and that is what I'm comfortable drawing. So I know that these characters won't necessarily reach every single person who is looking at my shop. But to those of you who do see them and think, hey, that looks like me, I'm glad. I really am. Because as a young teenager, that's all I ever wanted to feel. And like I mentioned, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you feel any kind of relation to my characters, despite the fact that they don't always have heads or all of their limbs, that's all I want from my art. As long as my art reaches the people that it needs to, I've fulfilled my goal in life, which is to make as many people happy as possible. I know I haven't drawn a lot of these characters lately because it takes a lot of energy for me to sit down and go through this process. So I really hope that you guys are enjoying the drawing video that I'm currently sharing because I'm obsessed with how this character turned out. One of you actually gave me a bunch of really good suggestions for this drawing, and I'm not sure if I conveyed all of them properly based on some of the comments that I've seen on updates regarding this drawing, but I do hope that you love it nonetheless. And if you guys have suggestions on different types of creatures or flowers you would like to see for different stickers in the future, definitely let me know in the comments.